So today I'm going to be taking a look at what is probably one of the hottest watches of 2022, the Moonswatch, the Swatch and Omega collaboration. It's pretty cool, so let's take a closer look. So we have a diameter of 41.8, lug to lug of 47, height of 13, and a lug width of 20 millimeters. Some other general specifications for the watch: we're going to have an ETA quartz movement beating away in here. You cannot see it through the case back, but you do have the little planetary cover for the battery. So we have 30 meters of water resistance here with a push-pull crown and acrylic crystal, what Swatch claims to be a bioceramic material, and that's how they also get all these cool fun colors. And last but not least, the watch retails for $260 if you can actually buy one at a boutique. So starting off with the dial of this watch, and it is for most purposes a Speedmaster dial. It has the same handset, it has the same layout, it has the same general sub-dial layout. Obviously here the two upper registers are a little bit higher and the bottom register a little bit lower, just because they have to work around the quartz chronograph placement, but you still get the same overall look. Moving the seconds hand out of the way a little bit, you do see we have the co-branding of Omega Time Swatch, which I think is pretty cool, and I think it looks good on the dial. The only other text on the dial we have is Speedmaster on the left-hand side and Moonswatch on the right, also furthering the idea of this being a collaboration. And I think it's cool because the S for the Swatch is done in the same color as the case. One thing to note is this does have a somewhat stepped Speedmaster dial, meaning the sub-dials are a little bit deeper into the dial, which is nice to see. Usually quartz chronographs don't necessarily have the deepest sub-registers, but we do not really have any stepping on the outside for the seconds track out here. It would have been nice to see a little bit more dial dimension with that stepping out there, but it's not the end of the world, and it's also not the most expensive watch in the world, so I think it's fair. This particular model does pay homage to the Alaska Project watch. We do have similar kind of space shuttle looking sub-dials at the two top registers here. On the Alaska Project they're done in black, but here they're done in red. Nice touch because again it matches with the case and just the overall elements on the dial. Similarly, the classic Speedmaster style hands are done the exact same way on the Alaska Project. A little bit of white and a little bit of black, mainly the black taking up kind of 2/3 of the hand just for legibility purposes, I feel. One thing I don't particularly love about this model in general is the fact that the Lume signatures on the kind of markers are very yellow leaning. It is similar to how the Alaska Project model does look, and I guess maybe they were trying to keep in line with that. And on other Moonswatch variants, they do have a much more wider leaning Lume. So I think it would have looked better here aesthetically, but I understand kind of paying homage. At the end of the day, it is a really well executed dial. It's very clean, it's very legible. The pops of color are really fun. The three-dimensionality of the actual applied lume looks cool. It actually adds to, I guess, the high quality feel of the watch, even though it doesn't necessarily feel like a premium product in hand. Overall, I think they did a pretty good job of taking the classic Speedmaster design and swatching it up a little bit. So zooming in on the Moonswatch, we can see the dial is fairly well printed. It doesn't look too bad. The dial itself also has this nice dimply texture, which is similar to what you find on the Speedmaster. Looking here at the outer seconds track, it is nicely lined in all this black print, which actually has three-dimensionality to it, which is cool to see. The lume, as you can tell, is much more yellow than the dial itself. As you can tell by the 12 o'clock marker, the dial is slightly stepped on the outside, but it's very, very subtly done. It would have been nice to see that done a little bit more aggressively, a little bit more separation from the two layers, quote unquote. Looking at the actual sub-dial, we do see it has a concentric circling and kind of a bowl shape to it, which is nice. Again, it adds to the 3D nature of the watch. The surface of the hand itself isn't as fantastic. It is very kind of rippled and has a kind of apparent paint texture to it. So you can't fault them too much. It is not the most expensive watch in the world, and at least it is still fairly well done and looks pretty good from wrist. The black of the hands are done similarly in this kind of lacquer or paint, and to be fair, I think it actually is applied a lot better looking than the red elements on the dial. It is a lot more uniform and a little bit shinier, which is cool to see. Looking closely there, you can see a little bit of the red fell off the hand most likely and got onto the dial. And then similarly here on the very edge, I don't know if that's maybe pieces of paint or whatnot that have fallen off, or whenever it was applied pretty messily to the rest of the dial. And another cool little detail you can see is right here in the acrylic crystal, there is S for Swatch, where usually it's the Omega logo. Overall, this watch is not the best made. It is still fairly well done. I have seen worse QC, I have seen much better QC. So it is really just kind of luck of the draw. At the end of the day, it isn't the most expensive watch in the world, so I think a lot of the little mishaps are forgiven. Moving on to the case, it is the classic Speedmaster style case. You do have the turned lyre lugs here. It isn't really finished, or I guess there aren't any differences in finishing. It is just done in this kind of blasted, very matte look, which I think looks pretty cool. I mean, it's the classic Swatch type look, and it lets the color shine a lot. I don't know what material the tachometer is done in. I'm just assuming it's a plastic. It is very nice. It is very bright. The printing is done fairly well on it, so no problems there. Looking at the side of the case, the watch is fairly thin. It does wear well. It wears a lot like the newer Speedmaster case, which I really like because that's the best wearing Speedmaster case I found for myself yet. And then here you can see at the crown, you do have the co-branded Omega and Swatch logo, which is also just a really cool touch. The watch does what it's supposed to. The pushers don't have the most amazing action or feel to them. They actually aren't even really aligned right. So if you look there, the running seconds doesn't really align at 12 perfectly. That's a little bit annoying, but I mean, at the end of the day, again, it's not the most expensive watch, and this is really just a more, you buy it for the fun factor of it. You buy it to get a almost feel of a Speedmaster, or like me, if you don't really mesh super well with the Speedmaster design, this breathes a little bit of fresh, fun air into it. Something I forgot to mention, and I'll mention it really quickly, we do have a 60-minute counter here at the left, a 12-hour counter here at the right, and a running seconds at the 6 o'clock. Looking at the case back here, I think it is done pretty fun. We do have, obviously, again, the battery cover with Mars on it. Mission to Mars stated because that's the variation of this model. And here we have some text on the outside. It says, dream big, fly higher, explore the universe, also reach for the planets and enjoy the mission. It's fun. Again, this watch is very self-aware. It's not meant to be taken very seriously. It is a very much Swatch product. And Swatch at the end of the day is there to just be a fun watch, a second watch, as it were. It's not supposed to be your everyday, it's not supposed to be your main watch, and although this definitely could, maybe in a less obnoxious color. Really quickly touching on this strap, obviously this is a somewhat Velcro style strap that some Speedmasters come with. I don't believe they all do, but this is the type that quote-unquote astronauts actually use. Obviously it has the same plastic bioceramic hardware, at least it's color matched, which is a nice touch, and it's obviously co-branded Omega Swatch. And then it does say Speedmaster and Mission to Mars, Moonswatch, a little bit more branding on the end. What I don't love is, one, it's not this super high quality strap, and that's fine, but it's weird because when you're wearing it, although this text looks very sensical when you just have the watch laying down, when it's on wrist, it ends up being like backwards, like this. Like I'll show you when I have it on, but it's almost like they printed it the wrong way, and it just doesn't make sense to me. And zooming in really quickly just before I put the watch on, as you can see, there is like a small little scratch right here in the watch case. So obviously this watch is not going to be impervious to scratches. Does it look too bad? I don't think so, and it disappears at certain angles. So it will happen, and that's just something to keep in mind. Moving on to how the watch wears. Earlier I was wearing my Sartori Billard here. Very cool guilloche dial. Probably be reviewing this one sometime soon. So here we have the Moonswatch on my 6.5-inch wrist, and obviously it wears pretty well. It's not too long lug to lug, I don't think. It is fairly thin, so it wears nicely on wrist. It wears like a Speedmaster does, and if a Speedmaster fits you, this will too. What is nice is it's not quite as heavy as a Speedmaster is, so it just wears pretty comfortably. But the strap I don't think looks fantastic. It's not terrible by any means, like it's fairly comfortable, but I don't think it has probably much longevity. If you wear it every day, it obviously will start looking very worn in pretty quickly. And this is what I was talking about when I'm saying the text genuinely looks upside down. Had they printed it the other way, when you're wearing it, you can actually read this, but as it's printed, it literally is upside down. So unless you, I think, moved it to the other side, it remains upside down. A little weird, but at the end of the day, it's not the biggest deal. And there we have it from the side. Very thin wearing. It doesn't rise up off the wrist really at all. And again, because it is super light, it is just a very comfortable watch to wear. Thankfully, the machining process that they use doesn't really leave any really harsh or sharp corners, so it's a comfortable watch. Moving on to some other straps, and I want to note, it's awesome that Swatch didn't make these like proprietary spring bars and they actually made it removable, because again, the strap's not fantastic and putting it on something else helps it wear a little bit better. So thank you. Looking at this strap more particularly, we do have this nice red Perlon. Obviously it reds out the entire watch and makes it a little bit much, a little bit loud, but at the end of the day, I don't think you bought this watch to be very subtle. So yeah, let's try it on. And there we have it. It just helps it sit slightly sleeker. The red tones, I think, pair pretty nicely. I'll have this strap linked down below in case anybody's interested or anybody actually buys this watch and wants to buy this strap. So yeah, that's the Perlon. Next, we have this brown distressed leather strap from Vario. You can absolutely try putting leather straps on these watches, but I don't think that's really the point, and I don't think they match really well. I personally think this looks pretty bad, but I mean, hey, I have it, so why not? Maybe if you had some more distressed kind of red suede, it would look kind of cool, but just for me, this does not really work. Obviously, you don't want to be putting like the Moonswatch on alligator or anything, so I think silicone Perlons is really the way to go with this watch. And then here we have my personal favorite, the Archer silicone strap, obviously in this white tone. I think it pairs amazingly. It looks really nice. It makes the white tones pop on the watch. It tones down the red just a little bit. It stays pretty true to the strap that Omega and Swatch wanted on this watch, but it just is a little bit more comfortable. My absolute favorite combination to wear this watch on. Again, it's just super comfortable. It plants the watch a little bit better. It's not as bulky as that Velcro strap. And I think it just looks fantastic. Like, this is how this watch is meant to be worn, and probably how all of them are meant to be worn. Just take them off of whatever strap they come on and put them on this Archer silicone strap, no matter which color, and I think it's gonna look pretty fantastic. You won't regret it. I mean, it's $260 for the watch and it's like $14 for the strap. I think it's a good combo. And then really quickly moving the strap just a little bit higher on my wrist. I have closer to a 6-inch wrist here, and I think you can see it still wears fairly well. Obviously, it looks a little bit oversized at this point, but if you have a smaller wrist, you can definitely wear this watch and get away with it looking quote-unquote proportional. But at the end of the day, if you like this watch, just wear it. Taking a quick look at the lume here, as you can see, it's actually not too badly applied. It does glow fairly well. You do have a fair amount of legibility. You actually have some lume here in the hour and minute counter, which I didn't realize at first. So that's actually pretty cool. So as you're timing something, you do definitely see not only the running seconds hand, but also the minute counter. So not too bad on the lume. It doesn't last forever, but better than nothing. Quickly reluming and comparing to my classic Timex Snoopy. As you can see, the Moonswatch isn't quite as bright, but it's still fairly legible. Again, not a terrible application of lume, and they could have done much worse for the price. So pros and cons of this watch, and for me the very first pro is just the fact that it wears well. It is a 42mm in technicality, and even though it's slightly smaller than that, it isn't super long on the lug to lug, it's not super thick, and even on my 6.5-inch wrist, I mean, this isn't the Moonswatch right now, but it wears well for its size. Big wrist, small wrist, as long as you can pull off the regular Speedmaster, and if you haven't tried one of those on, try to. And then if you like the way that looks, this will fit pretty much the same way. My next pro for this watch is just the fact that it's fun. I mean, this watch isn't meant to take anything too seriously. It's not meant to be a replacement for the Speedmaster. It's not meant to be your first luxury watch because it's not very luxurious. You know, it feels like plastic. It's basically made out of plastic. It's a bright, fun color. At least this one is. I mean, they have some more tame versions, especially like the Mission to the Moon. But even still, it's meant really to be watch collecting in its purest form. You buy it because you love the idea of it. It's something kooky in the collection. It gives you the look of the Speedmaster, some of the heritage aspects of it in its design language, but it's not an automatic movement. It's not a mechanical movement. It's quartz. It's a grab and go piece. It just is, sure, you don't care if it gets beaten up or banged against a wall or anything. It's just there to be worn and to be appreciated and to, again, be fun. And lastly, I'm just glad this watch is affordable. And I know that's a relative term, and $260 maybe is not affordable for some people. But in the terms of watches and in the terms of what they honestly could have charged for this watch and what people on eBay are charging for the watch, $260 is not outrageous. I think for the cool aspect of getting an actual Speedmaster case in a cool color that's just fun looking, $260 is fair. Now moving on to some cons, and for me, I guess a huge con would be the fact that you can't get this watch. I unfortunately had to buy one off of eBay, and I just really don't even want this Mission to Mars. I mean, I think it's a very cool watch, but I think Venus or Neptune. I think Neptune is the all dark blue one that I really, really like. And I want that one. I will hope I get it eventually, but to say that for a $260 watch that doesn't seem to be limited edition is a kind of weird sentence to say. At the end of the day, Swatch can easily supply the demand for this watch, and it's a little unfortunate that they're not. I understand that it builds hype. I understand that it probably helps the bottom line by getting people in store and possibly buying other Swatches, but it's a little weird. My other con is the fact that there are some QC issues. I have handled watches like, especially let's say Dan Henry. Any watch I've ever owned from them has been fantastic under macro. And to see this and the kind of little things that aren't quite right, it's a little unfortunate. Swatch definitely has the capabilities to make a fantastic watch to a high QC standard. They just didn't. So at the end of the day, it is very much seemingly a passion project, but they didn't fulfill it, I think, to the highest standards possible. A minor point will be the fact that there is a ghost date wheel. I did forget to mention it, but basically when you pull out the crown to the first position where a date normally is, you can actually pull out the crown to that position even though there is no date on the watch. There is no clicking, so there is no actual date wheel under the dial, but it's weird that it's still there. They also could have addressed that issue very easily. They just chose not to. And a very, very petty thing to just say is include a better strap or include an extra strap. I understand having this strap type as like a heritage callback to the actual thing that astronauts could wear, but I don't think it's overly practical, it's not overly comfortable, and it looks a little too bulky on the watch. Again, like you could have included a very cheap silicone strap and that would have been fantastic. Lots of times Speedmaster comes with the extra strap, so why not include this one with it? It's just an idea. So final thoughts, and I do really love the Moonswatch. It's cool, it's fun, it's just what watches kind of are about in its basest form. It's not meant to be taken too seriously. It's not meant to be overly expensive. It is just a cool watch that you can definitely express individuality in by getting a color or variation that speaks more to you. You can go very loud with the Mars or like the sun, or you can go very discreet with, let's say, the mission to the moon, which just almost looks like a regular Speedmaster. At the end of the day, I'm very happy this watch exists. Again, I'm not as happy that you can't get one necessarily, and I hope that's maybe rectified a little bit in the future. It was a little lame for Omega and Swatch to say, hey, it's going to be available online soon, and then they completely take that statement away. I definitely want to get one or two variations, and I'm not going to pay $700, $800, $900, over $1,000 for it, because at the end of the day, it's not really worth that price to me. Do I understand the fact of supply and demand? Yes, but there should be enough supply. At the end of the day, I'm glad this watch exists. It is a collaboration I never thought was going to happen, but it's cool that it did. It makes almost the Speedmaster accessible. It gives it a new audience. It kind of also introduces it to people. It can be the Moonswatch is your very first watch, and maybe the Moonwatch is your last one, you know? I think the final question is the Moonswatch worth all the hype that it's getting? And I think, yeah, it is. It is a fantastic watch, especially at retail. Heck, if you want to pay maybe $400 for it when it finally comes down slightly, might as well, right? It's a cool watch. I hope Omega or Swatch or whoever's going to start selling these starts ramping up production a little bit and gets them to the people who really want them. So I hope if you want a Moonswatch, you get one soon enough. At the end of the day, thank you for watching my video. Hope you got something out of it, and I'll see you in another one.